For the second time in 7 years, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez is headed to trial on bribery and corruption charges. He's accused of taking hundreds of thousands of dollars, even gold bars, in exchange for upping U.S. aid to Egypt, steering funds to various New Jersey businessmen, and helping one friend maintain a de facto monopoly on halal meat. Well, Menendez is in the middle of his third term in the Senate. He will not run as a Democrat for a fourth term this November, saying that depending on the outcome of this trial, he would consider running as an independent. Let's bring in former New Jersey state legislator John Wisniewski now. Thank you so much for being here. And I do want to ask you right off the bat, do you think these charges against the senator come as a surprise to you at all? What are you expecting here?
Well, they don't come as a surprise. Let's not forget that he had previously been charged 7 years before this, and there was an investigation when he first ran for U.S. Senate, indicating that perhaps at that time he had used his influence as a member of the House of Representatives to steer funds to a not-for-profit that he happened to own and rented the building to. So this is really the third brush with the law that Senator Menendez is having.
What role did his wife play in these latest bribery allegations? And are we going to see him try to pin this all on her, do you think?
Well, I think that's the really ungentlemanly strategy that Senator Menendez is engaging, and he's blaming his wife for his own legal troubles. And the fact of the matter is, as I pointed out earlier, this is not his first brush with the law. This is not his second brush with the law. And so it seems to me that it's a little disingenuous to say that the reason he's in the trouble that he's in now is because of his wife. It's certainly, it seems very clear, it's his own desire to amass huge amounts of cash.
All these brushes with the law you mentioned, but he keeps coming back. What do you make of Menendez saying he's not going to run for a fourth term as a Democrat? He will be considering running as an independent based on the outcome here.
Well, he's not running as a Democrat because the Democrats have made it very clear that they want nothing to do with him. But let's not forget that last time he ran and the time before that, he was embraced by the Democratic Party. He says he may run as an independent. I think that's really just preserving the impression that he may continue to be a U.S. Senate as some kind of bargaining chip in trial, but I don't really think that will ever actually come to pass.
What does his political future look like in your eyes?
I think he has no political future. Look, even if he beats these charges, he's not going to be a U.S. senator. Even if he beats these charges, he's certainly going to be tarnished for the remainder of his life as somebody who's had 3 brushes with federal investigators, and certainly not a very positive outlook for him.
Why not ride off into the sunset after this? Because he also has a son who is running for a second House term in New Jersey as well. Isn't this just going to impact him and his chances?
Well, certainly it's going to impact his son. His son's got a primary opponent. I think one of the issues that his primary opponent is raising, perhaps not directly, but indirectly, is the fact that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That'll remain to be seen as the primary outcomes. But you're right. I mean, certainly, as this goes on, the name Menendez is becoming more and more tarnished. And the son, who probably has absolutely nothing to do with any of this, is being tarnished by association.
Can I ask, Menendez, former Governor Chris Christie, members of the state assembly, all indicted in a laundering probe back in 2009. Plainly, does New Jersey politics have a major corruption problem?
Well, I don't think it's isolated to just one state. You can look at the scandals that involved the leadership of the New York legislature. You can look at other states as well. I do think that one of the issues that often happens is that incumbents in ultra-safe seats tend to cross the line more than people who are always looking over their shoulder politically. And I think that's a case. What's happened here is Bob Menendez beat the charges 7 years ago, and I think he viewed himself as being invincible. We'll see what happens in this trial, if that's true.
We will see. I really appreciate the time and perspective. John Wisniewski, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.